Welcome, everyone, to our webinar today on accelerating regional innovation and economic growth. Very important topic. My name is Raj Sharma. I am the CEO and founder of Public Spend Forum, and I'll get us started, and then we'll have Courtney Zog moderating the panel today. So let me just go ahead and go through the agenda. So we've got a great panel today, and I know this has been updated, so I'm going to take us off screen for a second. We've got a number of experts, as we always like to have, with just a wealth of knowledge joining us. So we'll go through intros as we start the panel. But before that, I just want to walk through the agenda really quick and get us started. So for the agenda today, we'll be just going through the regional innovation ecosystem dashboard, a dashboard that we've invested a lot of time in to really help surface what's happening across the country. So we'll just do a quick preview. And we have a surprise guest here we didn't have on the in all our promotion for this, but we're really excited to have her here and she's going to provide some remarks, and then we'll jump into the panel. So it's a quick hour, a lot to cover. So with that, I'm going to just go ahead and first go to the innovation dashboard. I'm just going to spend 2 minutes on it just in the interest of time, and then we'll go ahead and start with the discussions here. So let me just switch my screen here. So as you may know, Public Spend Forum is a market and supply chain intelligence platform. Really, our focus is on accelerating innovation, especially in manufacturing and in really important emerging technologies, not just in the US, but increasingly across the world. And so with that, where I am right now is on our platform. Where we have some dashboards. So the specific one that I'm going to just spend 2 minutes on is the Regional Innovation Dashboard. The Regional Innovation Dashboard really came about as we were thinking about innovation and where it's happening, and our guests will talk about this, right? Is We know all the big centers of innovation, but where is innovation happening beyond the obvious ones, right? The Silicon Valley and Boston and Austin and all those places, right? And there is a lot of really amazing stuff happening all across the country. And so it's important for us to really understand that, but also to channel that energy because there's so many great people out there working. And so this dashboard right here, I'm just kind of bringing it up here. It's based on all the massive amount of data we collect and really our knowledge on innovation and how innovation happens. And we also sought a lot of input on this. So what this dashboard is just showing you is really our goal to show what are the top areas across the country, broadly speaking, as well as by tech areas, this other one, second view of it. And what you can do here really quickly is we have three parameters that we rated and ranked. One is capital infusion, how much money is going into an area. So what you see with these blocks here are really metropolitan statistical areas. You may know EDA, Economic Development Administration, manages and out of Department of Commerce. And this is, so we mapped all our data to how much capital is coming into an area. That could be government money, private capital, et cetera. How many companies, organizations are in an ecosystem, right? So that's not just companies, by the way. It could be entrepreneurial organizations. It could be research institutions, et cetera. And then human capital, which is really critical. So, and then you can rank these by you can basically pick two methods here, per capita or by actual value. Reason we put per capita is because sometimes the smaller areas get hidden if it's just based on absolute values. So we wanted to have that per capita view, and then you can base it on based on number of organizations or these different methods. So I'm going to click on holistic here, which basically evenly weights all of these factors. And then this by population, we've taken all these districts and basically, you can look at them based on population size. So I'll take away the largest size here, for instance, and now you only have the smallest ones above or below 1 million in population. What you see is the ranking here some of the ones that pop up are probably not the ones you always think of, or they're not obvious to people outside of those regions, right? Carson City, Nevada, Great Falls, Montana, Boulder, Colorado. So if we just click on one of them, for instance, Carson City, you can sorry, it's very small here, tiny, so you can barely see it. So maybe I'll click on a different one, Great Falls. So you can come here and then see all the data behind it and what's happening. There's some stats here, but then we have additional detail we're capturing on kind of what's happening in each one of these areas. So you can do this, and you can go buy emerging tech, and also look at it this way by picking an emerging technology area and saying, okay, you know what? Where's quantum happening? Right? What are the areas that we don't know about right now? So this is what I wanted to show you. I'm not going to spend too much more time in the interest of really moving things along quickly here. So please check it out. You can go to Public Spend Forum's website and go to the dashboard and find that information. There's a public version of this. What I was showing you was a more subscriber version, but you can check that out there. So with that, I'm going to move to the second part of the agenda, our surprise guest here, Alejandra Castillo. Many of you may know Alejandra from her most recent role as Assistant Secretary for Economic Development. And she was leading up a lot of the initiatives that we're going to talk about today, and really guiding some of those efforts in terms of where we can make investments across the country. So with that, let me go ahead and hand it over to Courtney. Courtney is going to moderate our panel today, which is really focused on understanding, what's happening across the country and what are some of the practices being undertaken. And Courtney, thank you so much for joining us today. And I know so many great initiatives you're leading, like Right to Start, and you're obviously board member of the International Economic Development Council, and leading up Right to Start and working with that. So thank you so much for all your inspirational work and for moderating today.
Thank you. Thank you, Raj. I really appreciate it. So as he mentioned, my name is Courtney Zog. I'm based in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm co-founder of VentureVets, which is an accelerator for supporting veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs, and a recent member of the International Economic Development Council board, where my focus is entrepreneurship and innovation. I am thrilled at the panel that we have. The fact that we have urban and statewide and rural perspectives, I think, tells a lot about the work that not only what we're doing across the country, the work Raj, of course, is doing on the dashboard, but also relates to what economic developers are facing. So thank you all for coming. Each one of you will introduce yourselves very briefly, and then we'll get into the questions. First on my screen, I have El Gal in Montana.
Hi there, my name is Elle Gale. I'm the CEO of Shadow Ridge Analytics in Bozeman, Montana, and we are an innovation management firm and startup studio. So our focus areas are critical materials processing and the manufacturing of derivative products, integrated photonics, quantum supply chain, smart sensing, and advanced manufacturing. So I'm very, very much looking forward to being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Brooke Pine in Indiana. Hi, Brooke.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be with you today. As Courtney said, my name is Brooke Pine. I am the EVP of Innovation and Strategy at the nonprofit Applied Research Institute. We do innovation ecosystem builds and offerings across various different verticals, technical verticals, and footprints. So we do Indiana, we do regional stuff, we do several defense related activities as well, which is actually my background as a Department of Defense innovation. But we also do some Midwestern stuff. So for instance, on the Midwestern kind of coalition, we are one of 8 national hubs out of the ME Commons effort, Silicon Crossroads. And we are also an EDA regional tech hub for biotech manufacturing. So again, we're able to kind of collide those two sectors and really drive some rapid innovation here in Indiana and the Midwest.
Thank you, Brooke. Next, we have Evie Poitevent Sanders in Louisiana.
Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here as well. Thank you for having me. My name is Evie Poitevin, Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Greater New Orleans, Inc. So we're the regional economic development organization for Southeast Louisiana. And I currently, wear a lot of different hats, but oversee our Startup NOLA ecosystem building initiative. It's intentional place-based ecosystem building initiative to really bring together what were previously siloed and disparate facets of the ecosystem under one umbrella, and ensuring silos are broken down, everyone's rowing in the same direction. So that's a huge focus of ours. Also, Gina Wink, we've been very active in leading and supporting the state's energy transition that kicked off a few years ago, with special thanks to Ms. Castillo. And also, we are now dipping our toes into DoD innovation, ecosystem building, and sort of strategic initiatives there, building on our history that we've had in the past in that area. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And next we have Greg Lewis in Virginia.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Greg Lewis. I live here in Virginia Beach. I actually retired out of here. I'm on the board of the Future of Hampton Roads in the mighty Commonwealth of Virginia on the East Coast, or Beast Coast, as we say sometimes. I am, in addition to being on the Future of Hampton Roads, I'm also the Director of Logistics and Government and Mid-Atlantic Regional Solutions for Sea Cheetah Corporation. I am also with the Association of Marine Corps Logisticians, which is a group that of retired military logisticians and active. And we actually have a chapter here in Hampton Roads, and we run a series symposium here in Hampton Roads because we believe this region is a great connecting area. So I'm plugged in, like a lot of the panel members today, involved in a couple different things with a lot of different hats, but excited to be a part of this group, represent Hampton Roads, and just learn about what's going on in these other dynamic ecosystems around the country.
Thanks, Greg. You're right. I think in economic development, everyone's not doing just one siloed thing. And the point of talking about innovation ecosystems is that we're trying to connect the various initiatives and assets in our respective communities. So thank you all. Let's start off. Goal setting. So in your respective communities, what goals have you set in order to lay the infrastructure and to build out your innovation ecosystems? How about Elle?
Yeah, I was just about to come off mute anyway. Our major goal is to really be a proactive opportunity engine for our nation's most pressing supply chain needs, especially as it relates to critical materials and those derivative products. It'd be remiss to say that Montana is also a regional technology hub for integrated photonics and smart sensing. And we really, our aim is to serve those industries and providing those minerals and those products, because without those, it doesn't really matter if we can create the end products here in the United States if we can't create all of the materials, subcomponents, and components that go into those systems. Like for example, we're working on a big project right now to serve regenerative materials for quantum computing. Quantum obviously is a huge initiative here in the United States, but there's particular materials and subcomponents that go into quantum systems. And if we don't have those products anymore, if China, for example, decides to turn off the spigot, there's no more quantum computing in the United States. So that's one of our major goals, is to really be the source and the engine for these types of components and materials that you don't hear about them in the news. Maybe even the end user isn't familiar with the type of systems that are going into these products. But our goal is to really reshore and supply those materials for our nation.
Very interesting. Thank you. Evie, in light of some of the new developments that are happening in your region, please share about the goals for the New Orleans and Greater Louisiana region for you.
So at the risk of beating the drum too much, again, ecosystem building is huge for us because I can't emphasize enough how siloed we were in all different ways across our ecosystem, including like private sector, higher eds, even just within industry or across industry sectors. So, I mean, as classic economic developers, our main goals are job and wealth creation, of course, always, regardless of the initiative. My role, ecosystem building. And sort of within that, the focus areas have definitely been like tech writ large. And then within that, the video game sort of subsector, a cluster we've been building here in New Orleans because video game companies really love all the creativity and culture that just naturally flows through the city and provides a lot of inspiration. We also have been working to stand up and support the entrance of new accelerators into the market because we were underserved in the accelerator space. So we've had great success with that. We've stood up Founder Institute, Techstars, the Metronome Music Tech Accelerator program is something that we're very involved with and very proud of to really leverage our sort of global brand of being a music economy and really focusing on tech innovation in that sector. Also, energy, of course, is one of our legacy industries here. And with special thanks to the EDA, we really kicked off under the GNO Inc. leadership and statewide partners the entire energy transition here with the Build Back Better Regional Grant Challenge. And then now we have the NSF Engine Fuel Team really focusing on R&D and commercialization in that space. Actually, the largest NSF engine award in largest NSF grant award in NSF history. So really excited about that. Big focus on carbon management reduction and utilization. And I mentioned DoD innovation as well. You know, we have a long history of manufacturing and in this space, as well as shipbuilding. And of course, now that all of the above are federal administration priorities and likely to have more secure funding in that realm as well compared to others. And given our natural strategic advantages with the river, the Gulf, and the lake, it just is kind of a no-brainer. It makes good sense to jump right back into that because we have not been as focused on it as economic developers in recent decades.
Certainly a lot going on and big goals that seem to be coming to fruition, that you know, great progress that's being made. Greg, tell us what's happening in Hampton Roads.
Yeah, so I guess I'm probably the one person on this call who's not in the professional economic development arena, but so Future of Hampton Roads is a nonprofit. And one of the things we're looking to do, so we've got 7 cities and I want to say 16 different counties that we consider Hampton Roads. It's hard to put on a map. You know, Virginia, I live in Virginia Beach, right on the border with Norfolk. And then we've got Suffolk, Chesapeake, quite a few just great historical cities. You know, we have the first landing right here, which the first settlers landed before they went to Jamestown. So a lot of firsts here in Hampton Roads. And so we're looking to help those 7 cities with Future of Hampton Roads. We're looking to get those 7 cities to work together, and rather than competing over, you know, one piece of pie, look to make, you know, more pies for everyone. And we're also looking to connect with Richmond. We have there's a group called RVA 757 Connects that we're kind of loosely affiliated with, and there's some other great you know, regional efforts where we're just, you know, 3 hours south of Washington D.C. And it is this great big body of water that has great tributaries, right? The James River goes up to Richmond, the Potomac goes up to DC, the Severn and Aberdeen rivers goes up to Maryland and so forth. And there's just obviously a tremendous defense. I retired here. I was in the military. We have a great veteran population here. So part of what we're looking to do with Virginia is to keep our veterans here. There's you know, so I know the governor is working, you know, some things tax-wise to keep all that expertise in-house and get people and have jobs for people to go to when they retire. But we've got a lot more than the military folks here. You know, we've got great college systems. So we're looking at, you know, we've got Hampton University, Virginia State, which actually has a a microchip lab. And so I'm always kind of saying, well, why don't we need a microchip factory here? I know there's one in Northern Virginia, but I say, hey, we've got this great school that is pumping out these graduates with these degrees. We'd love to capture that. A lot going on with energy. We've got some moves afoot to put small modular reactors on. I want to say it's Quantico and some of our bases. We've got a tremendous offshore wind project. We have these transatlantic cables that are going to be touching ground just in Virginia Beach, and we're looking to capitalize on that. There's going to be a lot of data passing through. We just had a groundbreaking ceremony for companies going to be building subsea cables here in Chesapeake, one of our Hampton Roads communities. So we're excited to see where that goes. There's a move afoot to have something called the Global Internet Hub here, which will be, we're hoping for a tremendous increase in data centers and so forth. And then obviously the new administration's emphasis on maritime, bringing back our shipbuilding. There's some tremendous moves afoot there. We have a great historical legacy with that, but our shipyards need upgrading. So we're excited about that. We know that that bodes well for welders and other shipbuilding opportunities. So we're hoping to capture all that. We've got the space economy as well. We've got NASA Langley Research Center, which is kind of where NASA got its start, and the Force actually got its start in Hampton. Then we've got Wallops out on the Eastern Shore, which is a launch facility that's growing, and some cottage. I shouldn't say cottage, but industry is adjacent to the space market that are opening up there. So it's a lot of exciting things. I probably do go down the full laundry list. I also like to say, we've got NATO commands here. We've NATO hub here. Accelerator organizations looking to get us operating on all the cylinders and maybe get us into the darker green on Roger's map at some point. So, thank you.
Yeah, that's a lot going on, Greg. I appreciate that. Just for some housekeeping sake, I know that there are some questions in the Q&A box. Go ahead and put them in there. We are going to have time towards the end to do some Q&A directly. So if we don't answer them during the panel, we have time at the end, and we'll make sure that we get those questions answered for you. Next, of course, I want to talk about data, and for lots of different reasons. I recall, I'm old enough that when they were, mapping innovation ecosystems, they did it mainly by the number of patents, to identifying the number of patents that were being filed in a certain geography, and we've come a long way. So, Brooke, maybe you can talk a little bit about, what type of data, how are you using data, and mapping out your goals and understanding how Indiana, Central Indiana, or Indiana as a whole is doing in comparison to our competitor states.
Yeah, this is a great question. And it's an interesting thing how much good data and analyzed data can drive an aligned and focused strategy and goal set whenever you're building an ecosystem, whether it's an ecosystem that has some maturity within that state and region, like we have a littering of different ecosystems, some that are part of our DNA, right? Part of who we are. We're very rooted, understanding that kind of how that depth and where it goes, but then also understanding where some gaps are to really continue that maturation cycle to make sure that continues to be a massive part of our DNA of who we are. But then you get into the other kind of cycle, and I'll use microelectronics for an example, because it's been offshored for so long. That was the whole intent of OSD coming up with the Microelectronics Commons National Hub Network. And as I mentioned, we're one of 8. But it's been offshored for so long that guess what? The maturation cycle of that ecosystem is very different than manufacturing that we're rooted in here already in the Midwest. So how you utilize the data to set the strategy, to set the goals, to drive the ecosystem membership of the diverse set that you really need to create an innovation churn that actually has a rapid type of effect is really what you're after. So data I would actually say data is one of the underlying functional foundational components that I feel like sometimes gets missed when you're building an ecosystem. I mean, we all love to build, we all love to create churn and collaboration and enriching engagements and all of those kind of things. But you can really lose yourself without having intent and focus. The data gives you intent. The data gives you focus, and it starts to rally the people around a shared message. And it's just factual data, right? People can get behind a shared message if you have factual data and you can show them the data kind of analytics. So it is a massive part of what we do. Raj and I have been working together for quite a while on data sets across various ecosystems, and even how to measure the health of an ecosystem and or a hub, which maybe is another topic that Raj and I geek out on all the time. But data is absolutely foundational to anything you're doing.
Elle, certainly in your neck of the woods, data is all the things that you're doing. Can you share a little bit about how people that you work with are using data and what type of it that was most effective in building out their ecosystem?
Yeah, one of the challenges that we have in Montana, being a rural state, but also very much a government don't get involved state, is that a lot of our initiatives are very much industry led. We don't have a significant amount of capital coming from the state like other states do, like Colorado, for example, in the quantum space, or Maryland in quantum, and Chicago, and all of these things. So we really have to look at what are the key capabilities coming out of those investments, and how do we as Montana position ourselves to be competitive, but also be complementary? Because in quantum, and I'm just using quantum as an example, but it applies across the board, it's still such an emerging market that you can't just take, the 6 hubs and divide by 6 and everyone's gonna win. It's not gonna work, especially if you're in a state that it doesn't have a significant amount of steady public capital coming in. So that's the type of data that we look at. We also really look at the core market players, like big corporations that are driving market signals and market trends, to say and to see what major gaps are they seeing in the industry, what is hindering them from succeeding, and then how can we fill that gap with our capabilities. So it may be a little bit more qualitative, but at the end of the day, economic development is really about like who pays and why, and are you serving a customer? So that's what we're really focused on, is who are our customers, how do they pay, and why, and what makes them tick. So
Excellent, excellent. You touched a little bit, touched on some of the challenges, particularly when the capital infusion going into Montana is being an issue. Greg, can you talk a little bit about the challenges that you see happening in the Hampton Roads area in Virginia in particular, and maybe relate it to when you're looking at other model regions that maybe you hope to aspire to be, what have been ways that you've been able to take that information and apply it to supporting the innovation ecosystem in Hampton Roads?
Yeah, that's a great one. I think your question probably alludes to Silicon Valley, which is interesting because I've had a couple of conversations with folks that are in that area. And I actually went to grad school out there at Navy Postgraduate School, and I love what they're doing out there. It's great. There's Defense Innovation Unit. Most on this call are probably familiar with that. Set up their headquarters. I'm sorry, I'm getting some kind of call. Is that... Sorry, I apologize for that. We're an active, so there's a lot of calls coming in, lots of great things happening here in Hampton Roads. Yeah, why are we not thriving like Silicon Valley? Because I look at all the hubs that are here. We have got the primes, we got the Port of Virginia, we've got Maersk, big. We just got Lego here, which is exciting, and there are a lot of good things coming in. But I look at that dot on Raj's map of some of these hubs, and I say, why isn't Hampton Roads cranking on all cylinders? There's a lot going on here, but it seems like, if from my perspective, we should be just rocketing past. And there's a lot of folks that choose to leave, both whether they're the retired military communities or folks. So I think what we're looking to do, and that's part of what Future of Hampton Roads is looking to do, is, hey, let's get a regional value proposition. Because if it's just Virginia Beach saying, like, hey, come to Virginia Beach, we've got great beaches, it's a nice resort town. Well, that's not very, that's not a great way to draw like a big tech company in. Norfolk, hey, we've got the great port, but maybe we don't have the facilities to put a data center. But if we can come together as the broader Hampton Roads region, which I want to say, I think it's Charlotte has done this, I think, combined with other, Raleigh, Durham, where they have rebranded themselves as a tri-city area, or two cities, St. Paul, Minneapolis, that sort of thing. I think if we can have a regional prop, which we're looking to do, our airport is the Norfolk Airport, but I know when you're flying in from other places, they call it the Norfolk Virginia Beach Airport or the Hampton Roads Airport, something like that, for instance. So I think from a branding perspective, just branding ourselves as that, right? Silicon Valley is not just, Mountain View, it's San Francisco, it's San Jose, so I think having a collective, that's what I would like to see, and just capitalize on it. And I misspoke. Earlier I mentioned Virginia State University. It's actually Norfolk State University that has the microchip lab. So I would let, we've got Norfolk State, we've got William Mary, Old Dominion, a lot of great regional schools, Hampton University, and so we've got a lot, just a great regional value prop. So that's what I would like to see mimic, is draw into the region, businesses, in the aggregate, and spread that love across that love and that capital across the 7 cities and regions. Over.
Right. Yes, collaboration. Evie, in respect to, with the Greater New Orleans region, what have been the greatest challenges that you've seen?
Oh, there've been many, but I think
just one?
I know, but that which does not kill you makes you stronger. And we do have a lot of resilience, popular buzzword these days, but that's critical in innovation and entrepreneurship. No, what I kind of jotted down as notes is in terms of like the economic development orgs, or the ESOs and accelerators that are like supporting the founders. Funding is always a challenge. We are, a poor state, and we've historically been very undercapitalized, under-resourced. So that legacy still like kind of hangs over us to this day, although we're obviously trying to change that. As a nonprofit EDO, capacity is always a challenge. Sometimes it feels like we're trying to boil the ocean with a staff of a few, but it also kind of like puts the fire in your belly too, and keeps you always going at 110%. Going back to the topic of data, a big pain point for us is lack of data. I think with like exactly what Brooke was saying, with ecosystem building, we like charged out of the gates. It's been heads down nonstop. It's been really successful. It's working. Everyone is super cohesive and collaborative now, but we have not laid that data foundation yet. And it's kind of been like building the plane as we're flying it. So there have been a lot of conversations about which platforms we're going to adopt and start utilizing. Also, related to this, a big challenge was sort of what we're calling the old LED, Louisiana Economic Development. While we worked closely with them, they were partners of ours, of course. They had not undergone a strategic plan in 20 years. There wasn't a lot of sort of leadership or drive or focus under the old LED on innovation and entrepreneurship specifically. So what's super exciting, huge opportunity for us is the new LED that was completely reorged. They created an innovation division. It is now branded LA.io. They have like come out of the gates, all guns a-blazing, so to speak, and really making their presence known across the country. So with that, we are hoping, we've been in conversations with them about, they've already undergone the LED strategic plan with McKinsey that's been unveiled, but now we want to get into a strategic plan specifically for the I&E space. And then doing like a complete asset mapping exercise statewide, and cataloging the assets out there, and then establishing baseline data points And then every year or two, benchmarking against those, with an annual report, impact report. And I'm saying statewide because obviously doing that thoroughly and properly is going to require a significant investment of dollars. But also, we're just not that big of a state. We're not that big of an ecosystem yet. So even though New Orleans is the biggest name, the sort of the most concentrated cluster of ecosystem players in the state, we really need to take that statewide rising tide lifts all boats approach. And so we're hoping, we feel confident that LA.io and the new LED are going to lead the way on that, solving that data challenge, and as well as funding too. So.
Oh, I so appreciate that. I think even 5-6 years ago, statewide EDOs were not the thought of incorporating entrepreneurship and innovation in their economic development strategy was still unheard of. And so the fact to see Louisiana and Indiana too have like come as far as they have, it's just it's mind-blowing and really great. So thanks for sharing that.
And I do want to say, like, no disrespect to the old LED, because again, they've always been close partners of ours. And to their credit, they partnered with the Edward Lowe Foundation, and for years now they have run programming for entrepreneurship, but it's really tended to be more skewed more towards like traditional small businesses. There hasn't been this hyper focus, very like loud and proud, intentional focus on high growth startups and the innovation sort of deep science, deep tech community. So, but that has completely changed with the announcement of the Meta data center in North Louisiana. That's going to be like our data center country in the northern half of the state. There's already like other announcements related to that as well in the data center space. We just announced on Monday that New Lab New Orleans is launching next year. That is going to be focused on deep tech companies that are solving our carbon related challenges. So again, in the energy transition space. And then we also had a really big, very visible let me step back, leverage the Super Bowl to make a very loud and proud, visible statement about innovation and entrepreneurship with a full Innovation Day program that we partnered with LED on. It was the announcement of LA.io, the announcement of several new growth funds, and also the launch of the Louisiana Artificial Intelligence Institute, which is still, we're actively building the roadmap for that, which will be followed by a strategic plan. But like very quickly in 1 year, it's been like new dawn, new day with statewide leadership, which is super exciting. It was sorely needed.
Very, very neat. Very neat. Talking about things that are also working, Brooke, what types of things at ARI or even in Indiana that have been working, and share a little bit about how, how your organization has been measuring the return on investment, the success of that.
Yeah, so this is a great question. So to set a little context about ARI, just so the portfolio of what we work, we have a suite of federal and defense related programs, right? So Midwest Tech Bridge out of Naval X, we're the PIA partner for that we execute. We got the ME Commons Hub. We're the DARPA Connect PIA for all of DARPA across the entire country. The EDA Regional Tech Hub, and then littered with that or accompanying that is some state-driven kind of initiatives and programs. So P3s within the state that drive innovation. We also support Indiana Voucher Grant Program, which is very much an ED kind of focus enabling program. We also do the SBIR state program and the SBIR state matching. So you can kind of start to see and paint this picture of these different various degrees of ecosystems and programs that we support, and then how they complement each other and how they can kind of cross-pollinate, which I think is something is very valuable that we bring to the forefront, is having that bird's eye view of about 15 different ecosystems and how they can collide and pull together, littered with those enabling programs. But what we have is we kind of have a proven innovation framework. Again, we're not an economic, we're kind of like Greg, we're a nonprofit, we're not an economic development organization, although they're closely related to us and there's some key partners that we have to kind of drive, it's kind of, you're driving kind of innovation-driven economic development prosperity, right? That's kind of what we're all doing, but from different angles. So we have what I call an innovation architecture. And then within that architecture, it is littered with offerings or initiatives that can be plugged and played out depending upon what the requirement, what the goal is, what the health is of each one of those ecosystems that we are supplying. And then it's a journey. We grow with them. We kind of have this entire suite. One ecosystem may want a massive ideation pursuit where we start to fill a warehouse full of solution sets that then we can go market to other DoD partners or other Department of Energy, whoever the end result may be, or the aligned end usage might be. Someone might want that for the first 18 months, and then you pivot into something else. So we create a journey. We create an innovation roadmap with all of these folks that we have. We plug and play those offerings and initiatives depending upon what they need. But to get that right, we have to measure the right things. And sometimes measuring the right things is not just how many more federal dollars did we bring in? Because we all know I was 18 years inside the Navy. So you know how long it takes sometimes to get Navy dollars? That might not always be your right measure to know if you're on the right path, right? So then you start looking at leading indicators. And this is something Raj and I geek out on all the time. What's your leading indicators into those longer term goals that you can measure appropriately to have your pivot points quicker to make sure you're driving to the right end result? And that's actually more of like, I just geek out on what makes people stick in an ecosystem and kind of how you can get smarter up front. And I think that's just a completely different view than how most people, a lot of times it's how many projects did you bring in? How many new companies do you have? How many jobs did you create? It's the normal economic development stuff. But if you're measuring that, sometimes you're too late. You're too late. How do you get in front of that? And how do you start pivoting quicker to make it more impactful? So that's kind of where our initiatives kind of come from, and then how we drive those into that framework with our individual clients.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I mean, I'm from Indiana, so I'm a little bit biased, but I think, your point is well taken. Elle, maybe talk a little bit about, working with your communities and your clients. How do you help them measure the success of their specific initiatives and innovation ecosystem building?
Yeah, I love what Brooke said about we really shouldn't just be measuring how many federal dollars are coming into the region, especially now in the current climate. One of the things that we are really focused on, one of the initiatives that we were awarded here it's federally funded, but is through the SBA, the Regional Innovation and Cluster Program. So we have a cluster award, a contract to build startup infrastructure in Montana for critical minerals and derivative products. So if there's anybody from the federal government here, we are able to accept interagency agreements to work on critical materials and minerals innovation. So shameless plug right there. But and no disrespect to the tech hubs or the NSF engines, but our ROI has a much higher, our potential is much higher because we are very, very proactive in our approach. We're the co-founder, we're the operator, and we're the investor all in one. So we're heavily focused on getting new innovation out of our region in terms of, I'd love to hear from Brooke and Raj on what leading indicators should be for critical minerals and derivative products, because the things that I'm focused on is how many new companies are we starting? How many technologies are we transitioning out of our universities like Montana Tech? Montana Tech has some of the most innovative technologies in terms of critical materials processing and bringing down the unit economics of that manufacturing. But we haven't traditionally had tech transfer support in that area. That's what the SBA invested in us to do. We're also looking at private investment. How are we bringing in corporations to pilot these new technologies, turning them into projects within that corporation that could then potentially be either transitioned directly into that corporation. Is it a new technology that they just procure, or is it a strategic M&A opportunity? So that corporate attraction is a big indicator of how we're measuring success as well, because again, that tells us, are we actually solving a market need here? So those are the primary things that we are looking at today in the critical mineral space in Montana.
Excellent. I know we don't have a ton of time, so I want to make sure that we answer maybe at least 1 or 2 questions from the folks that are attending today. So Evie, if you don't mind if I pitch this question to you, from Cynthia, any thoughts to build a cohesive innovation regional ecosystem? Now, he says across the country, right? But do you encourage competition among regional innovation centers and cooperation? Maybe tell a little, talk to us about how you've been able to collaborate with other, what seemingly could be competitors, but in order to move the greater state forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So, going back to my comments about the School of Hard Knocks and sort of the challenges Louisiana and New Orleans have faced, what that did was humble people to realize, like, no, we can't do this alone. We have to work together. I mean, I think Katrina was really our turning point there, Hurricane Katrina. And so again, you can achieve more when you work together than trying to go it alone. I mean, you're talking about economies of scale, efficiencies of scale. The sum of the whole or the parts is greater than the whole. All the sayings. But so anyway, even though my primary focus is our 10 parish footprint of Southeast Louisiana, we say parish, it means county. We recognized early on the importance of developing relationships with our partners that were doing innovation work in Baton Rouge, Lafayette, Shreveport. And really, one of the sort of the mechanisms that helped us to do that was another U.S. federal U.S. Treasury stimulus program, or federal spending program, the SSBCI program, State Small Business Credit Initiative. And we're very active in that. It's actually spawned the creation of several new venture funds and of course supported existing ones. So we've had a very positive experience with it in Louisiana. But in getting into that space, we recognized we had to talk to all the different VCs across the region, and therefore the ESOs and accelerators, because a lot of times they're one and the same. And it really established those lines of communication, developed the relationships, the trust building. So now with any other initiative or challenge or question or problem, it's so easy to pick up the phone or shoot an email and get a quick answer. So a lot of people don't realize, like, sort of these like intangibles, upsides to these programs. It's not just that program or the federal spending behind it, but it's the relationship building and the collaboration that comes from it. So I see no downside to reaching out to your regional counterparts and partnering with them. There's only upside for days. And I think it's going to be even more important as we enter this new era of, economic uncertainty and global geopolitical uncertainty.
Very true. Very true. Brooke, any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I think this is actually a really great question. And I have a couple of examples, but the first one, the one that I'll give that I think is most rooted in the question is when we were pursuing the ME Commons Hub. Here we are sitting in the middle of the country, right? Indiana no longer want to be a flyover state. And the Microelectronics Commons Hub actually had 6 key technology areas. And when we started looking at our R1N structure and again, track our depth of microelectronics in each 6 of those, we quickly kind of figured out, well, for quantum microelectronics, we're not the powerhouse, but Illinois is. And for this section, we're not the powerhouse, but Michigan is. And then Indiana's strong here. So we actually created a coalition. So our hub is 3 states driven, and this went all the way to governor level, which was probably impressive enough in itself. With the short window, we flipped it, that it went all the way to governor level for all 3 states, and they united, did an MOU, and pursued this holistically. But it kind of gets back to what Evie says, right? We quickly figured out we each have our own individual areas of strength. But together and unified, we can rise the tide so much better. We can leverage between the universities. We've now created what's called the R1N nucleus for the hub that is universities in all 3 of those states. That is now one master agreement for any hub members. Like if they want to go to Notre Dame, but yet need to send something over for a testing capability at UIUC in Illinois, it's one agreement. They cross them between the 2 universities. Everything's taken care of. It's like really colliding the true collaboration and the meaning behind it for innovation in a hub national network. And quite frankly, competition had to be put aside. It was literally like, okay, we either unite and drive into each one of our areas that we know we do really well and capture a hub holistically, or we try to go it alone and we run the risk of none of us getting anything. And that has been so successful across the board. I mean, in 18 months, we pulled in like almost $150 million across workforce development, infrastructure, projects, hub operations. 95% of what we get in here at ARI, again, neutral third party, goes out to those ecosystem members. And we're pretty proud of that, right? So, but it wouldn't have happened without everyone just humbly putting down any of that competition. And I'm not saying there isn't some friendly competition here and there. Friendly competition is okay. But I'm still sold on the fact that the only reason we won the hub is because people got behind their DNA for each one of the states and united holistically.
I just wanted to quickly chime in to like double down on what she said. Because of the willingness for partners to come together across South Louisiana, we led and won the EDA's Build Back Better Regional Grant Challenge. Thank you again, Ms. Castillo. And that was for 50 million with a state match of 25. Then that same consortium with the rest of the state folded in, so a statewide consortia applied for NSF engines and won, and that's 160 million over 10 years, again, the largest in history. We also, that same group, banded together to apply to EDA for the Tech Hubs designation. That was solely focused on offshore wind, so unfortunately it's kind of dead in the water now, but nonetheless, it was that spirit of collaboration, and we got to band together and do this because we can't afford to go it alone anymore. It's out of necessity, and it's more fun too that way.
I 100% agree with that. Thank you all. I know we're a little bit out of time. There are so many questions in the chat that we didn't get answered. Raj, maybe we can follow up individually and share with the attendees here. But thank you all very much for sharing your perspective, the good and the bad and the ugly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Raj.
And thank you, everyone. And Courtney, thanks for moderating. And I love just being able to sit back and just take notes and learn and from all this amazing conversation here. Thank you, everyone. And so, as we said at the start, this is a series. So we'll be actually, Alejandra and I are going to talk soon and schedule the next one. So we'll send out an email with that information. But we'd encourage you to check out the dashboard. We're updating that information, and the goal, I think, with all of this kind of just the conversation around collaboration, visibility, metrics, what works, what doesn't. Data is key, so that's what we're trying to do, is provide that data around kind of what's working, what's not, what should the metrics be, and so we can form that connectivity as we look across all this data, right? We see there are strengths and pockets across the country in different areas. So thank you so much for sharing some of that kind of the color behind the data. And we look forward to just continuing this conversation, learning from everyone. And please reach out if you are looking for data, and really kind of be data driven. That's I think with Brooke, and I think next time Hannah from Denver, Chief Innovation Officer, she's going to join and talk about some of the data and how they're using it. But thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.